do our show for everybody. Appreciate you guys joining us. Jennifer, hope you're having a great evening. Make sure you throw your questions in the chat, Jennifer, since you are a subscriber. It will be wonderful to have your questions in the chat. Appreciate you guys being with us. Looking forward to answering some fantasy football questions for Week 11. I mentioned this earlier in our show for everybody. It's crazy to think that it's already Week 11. The season is flying by. Fantasy football playoffs are on the horizon. So I'm excited to answer your questions tonight and hopefully set you guys up for a lot of success over the next week and hopefully over the next month plus. So throw your questions and comments in the chat. But again, subscriber only show. If you don't want to subscribe, totally get it. Join us at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon, whether it's on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, or Kick. 4:30 tomorrow afternoon for our show for everybody. If you have questions, though, tonight, you have to be a subscriber. We'll answer as many questions as you want, though, and that way it kind of weeds out people. When we do our shows for everybody, we usually have an audience of around 8,000 to 10,000 people who watch that show throughout the entirety of it. This allows me to kind of focus on the handful of people who have a bunch of questions, who are really committed and passionate about the show. Stivo's channel traded DJ Moore for T. Higgins. Had to make a change in the locker room on a 3-game losing streak. Stivo's channel, I hear ya. I actually kind of love the idea of making some adjustments, almost for morale purposes in fantasy football. Sometimes I'll do that with certain players where it's like, I just feel like I need to give you a timeout. I need to change you. Shanda the Wine Panda, appreciate you subscribing for another month. Throw your questions and comments in the chat. I look forward to answering them. That goes for all of you. No matter your questions, you can ask as many as you want, by the way. Obviously, that's the point of the subscriber-only show. Kike is guap. Would you trade Josh Jacobs for Aaron Jones or Chuba Hubbard? I think Josh Jacobs has interesting value. I'm going to pull up his long-term schedule, and that way I can check it out for you, because the trade is going to be predicated largely on what he can deliver for you in the final third of the season and not just over the next week or two. So the Green Bay Packers, over the final few weeks of the season, they play some good run defenses, at least in the next, let's say, weeks 12 through 15. Then they play the Saints. He only has like really good value, maybe 1 or 2 weeks. I might be willing to make a move. I don't love the idea of it because he's going to be on an offense that's going to be committed to points. I don't think either one of Aaron Jones or Chuba Hubbard is necessarily an upgrade. I would stay with Jacobs over the two of them, even with the tough schedule. But if there was someone else, I might consider moving on, just as an interesting thought. Shanda the Wine Panda, Adams, Reed, or Downs. For this week, it's Devontae Adams. I really like Devontae Adams' matchup this week. Then again, I did say that last week, but against the Indianapolis Colts, I do think Devontae Adams has a good game. Alvaro, what should I do with CeeDee Lamb? You can hold on to him and play him, but I think at this point, he's a low wide receiver 2 value, maybe even a flex. I'm just not high on him overall. I think there's a lot of reason to be concerned. One of the biggest reasons, and I actually brought this up about Justin Jefferson, funny enough, at the very beginning of the year, when I thought the Vikings weren't going to be a very good team, is with a player like that, once a team is out of the running, which the Cowboys, they are, you start to bench him. You start to be cautious. If he's feeling 80%, you bench him as opposed to play him, because you don't want to hurt him for a longer period of time, because the Cowboys are now playing for 2025. They're not playing for anything in 2024. So I'd move on from CeeDee Lamb, because his end of season is coming earlier than everyone else's. So his value might be decent for 2-3 more weeks, but it may fade very, very quickly as the Cowboys' playoff chances evaporate. Jennifer, Goff or Jalen Hurts? This week, it's a great question. I'd go with Goff, just barely. It's tough because Hurts has been consistently getting rushing touchdowns, and we all know that when he's doing that, his value is just as good as about any fantasy football quarterback. But I lean towards Goff against Jacksonville, coming off that horrible game with interceptions against the Texans. He comes back home against one of the worst pass defenses in the league. I'll go Goff over Hurts just barely, though it is very, very close. Nicholas P. Start 2. Higgins, Pickens, McLaurin, or Tillman. I'm going to go with Pickens and Tillman on this one. Pickens and Tillman just ahead of McLaurin, but Pickens and Tillman are the two. Cody Meyerson, Swift, and Cup for CMC. Oof. I would probably say yes because I don't believe in Swift. I love him, but if the Bears offense is going to be question mark city, I probably would move on and go after a CMC. He looked decent. I didn't think he would have a very good game against Tampa Bay, but he actually looks better than I expected. Brian Robinson Jr. or Tony Pollard. I would probably lean towards Tony Pollard on this. I'm going to go Brian Robinson Jr. Brent, I'll go Brian Robinson Jr. just barely, though it's very, very close. Brent, Tyreek Hill, or D-Hop? I'm leaning slightly towards Tyreek Hill on this one. I'm trusting with Tua back. Tyreek Hill, even much like his performance on Monday night, didn't have a great game, got a touchdown. I think that's how he's going to perform. Either he performs very well, or he probably gets you a touchdown, so he's worth the start. Sal, Purdy, or C.J. Stroud. For this week, I'd go C.J. Stroud. I expect Nico Collins to be back. They're going up against the Cowboys. I'd go C.J. Stroud. By the way, hello to you, Sal. Brian, roll with Goff this week or pick up Herbert? Roll with Goff. Roll with Goff. He's going to be as good as anybody you'd pick up. Alvaro, what's a good wide receiver to trade for? CeeDee Lamb. Very hard to do position for same position trades and expect to come out ahead of it unless you were trying to do a 2-for-1 in which you're trading CD and maybe getting two lesser pieces. But frankly, I would try to move on. Maybe even look for a high-value tight end. Look, Travis Kelce is as valuable as it gets out there as a pass catcher for the rest of the season. I don't care that they have D-Hop. If you could somehow go to the Travis Kelce owner, put CeeDee Lamb in the deal, and just see what happens. That would be what I would do, but I'm a bit crazy. You know how I am. Appreciate the questions. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's one of my favorite shirts, actually. Little Bo Jackson love. Hope you guys are loving the content, loving the show. It is a subscriber-only show, so make sure you guys are subscribers. If you're watching the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That's how you comment. Mike, James Cook, or Kareem Hunt? I would go Kareem Hunt on that one. I'd go Kareem Hunt. Aiden Thompson, trade Josh Allen and BTJ for Joe Mixon. I don't want to move on from Josh Allen just yet. I love the idea of getting Joe Mixon, but I think Josh Allen has MVP performances ahead of him. Kike is Guap, Bo Nix or Drake May. For this week, Bo Nix. For this week, Bo Nix just barely. I like the Rams defense enough to think that they slow down May from having a big performance, though I think he'll play decently well. User 8900, Tank Dell or Jaden Reed. Very close on this one. I'm going to lean slightly towards Tank Dell. With Nico Collins back, I think the passing game of the Texans opens up. It's close, though, because of how Reed's used in a multitude of ways. But I'm reminded of the fact that the Bears have a very good pass defense. The Bears are a much better pass defense than people think. So I'm going to lean a little bit away from that Packers offense, and I'll lean into Tank Dell on that decision. Sal, appreciate you hitting the like button. Jennifer, pick two. Mason, Mixon, Taylor, or Dobbins. I'd go Taylor and I'd go Mixon. And I would have a lot of confidence in that. Taylor and Mixon, I actually think, are two of the better plays this week across fantasy football. So two players I'm very, very high on. Cody Meyerson, Herbert, Stroud, or Goff. I'd go Goff. I'd go Goff out of that group. Brent, I'm lucky. I'm so lucky. Pick up Pacheco before anyone else. Yep, if Isaiah Pacheco is out there, go out there right now, make the waiver claim, and yes, if you're in a league in which you have a budget, I would commit serious dollars to him because rest of season, I would probably consider him an RB2 with Kareem Hunt until we get more evidence or more data on which one's going to be at the top of the depth chart. But that said, Isaiah Pacheco is going to get folded back into the mix very, very quickly. One thing sounds strange, but one thing I like about his injury is it was a break. It wasn't a tendon. It wasn't something ugly. It was a broken bone. Broken bones heal, and then you're pretty much the same player. There wasn't structural damage. It wasn't like he blew out his knee, and he's coming back from that. So I feel like he's going to be a pretty similar player to what he was before. Additionally, a mindset as much as physical ability. Lonely Tourist, pick three. Lonely Tourist, I'd go Dell, I'd go McConkey, and I'd go Tillman. Dell, McConkey, and Tillman out of that group. Nuve, DK, pick 3. I'd go Saquon, Achane, and Brian Robinson Jr. Saquon, Achane, and Brian Robinson Jr. out of that group. Kike Isgua, Packers or Titans defense? Oh, Packers defense. Packers defense. User 8900. McBride on a bye for me this week. Start Gesicki, Will Dissly, Kyle Pitts, or Dalton Schultz. It's really tricky because I think it comes down to me between Gesicki and Dalton Schultz. Kyle Pitts would normally be a good play, but I don't like the matchup against the Denver Broncos. I'm going to lean away from Kyle Pitts. I'm going to lean towards Gesicki. With Nico Collins back. I think that probably takes away a few targets from Schultz, who frankly didn't do enough with Nico Collins out to begin with. I expected a greater production performance from Dalton Schultz this past week, and he didn't have it. I thought he'd be much better. I thought we'd see more touchdowns from him this year, to be honest. I'd start Gesicki, user 8900. I know it's T. Higgins out there. Similar issue. Does he get as many targets? I feel better about Joe Burrow dispersing the ball around and finding Gesicki than I think I do about C.J. Stroud. I think. Appreciate the questions. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you don't want to subscribe, I totally get it. Just make sure you hit the follow button and join us at 4:30. 4:30 tomorrow is our show for everybody. We'll take a subscriber call. We'll take one because he is a subscriber. Let's see what Juan wants to talk about. Juan, what's good?
Hey, how's it going, man?
What's happening?
I'm doing pretty good. First of all, I want to go ahead and say appreciate the content, man. Keep it up, man. I'm always DMing you on Sundays for some bets. I feel like you're the guy to go to when it comes to fantasy and bets.
I really appreciate that, Juan. I appreciate you watching the show, and I really appreciate the kind words. It's honestly incredibly humbling that you just take time out to watch me talk sports. What can I help you out with this week?
So I have a couple questions. The first one is, I'm uncertain who I should start at wide receiver number 2. The receivers that I have at the moment are DeAndre Hopkins, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Parcell, Cortland Sutton, Romeo Doubs, or Demario Douglas.
Okay. How many do I get to pick out of that group?
Just one.
Oh, it's just one? Give him back to me one more time. Okay. Give him back to me one more time.
So it's DeAndre Hopkins, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Parcell, Cortland Sutton.
It's Cortland Sutton.
Romeo Doubs.
It's Cortland.
Sutton.
I'm going to take that back. Of all that group, I need just one. I would say Cortland Sutton. My only concern is he is going up against A.J. Terrell, and I do respect him as a corner. That said, the Falcons' pass defense, they're suspiciously bad. Suspiciously bad. Statistically, that is. I lean slightly, I think, towards Sutton, but out of the group, if I had to go with a second one, if there was someone that I had as a backup option, I'd actually probably lean slightly towards Demario Douglas. By the way, it's Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall. I'm not high on Pearsall. I'm not high enough, I think, on Pearsall and Jennings this. It's one or the other. It might be Pearsall. I like Pearsall, I think, more than Jennings. But I think the order of things I'd go in is Sutton, Douglas, and Pearsall. That would be kind of my top 3 out of that group.
Okay. So, honestly, that kind of answers my next question, which is I need 3 flexes for this week. And how I had it set it up earlier was I had DeAndre Hopkins as my wide receiver 2. And in my first flex, I had Cortland Sutton. But now I just changed it to Cortland Sutton as my wide receiver number 2, Demario Douglas, flex number 1. But I'm still not sure of who to start for the other 2 flexes.
I would probably slot D-Hop in there. I'm not crazy about D-Hop overall this week, but I like him enough given your other options. I don't want to double up. You watch the show enough. I don't like doubling up on players in the same offense when it's the same side of the ball. When it's 2 receivers, I tend not to do that. So I wouldn't go Jennings and Pearsall. I'd just go Pearsall and I'd kind of cross my fingers and hope that he cashes a lot for you. I would go Demario Douglas, I'd go D-Hop, I'd go Pearsall, and I'd go Sutton. That answers the question, right? Because that's 2 wide receivers and 2 flex.
Yeah.
Unless you have some running backs.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna go ahead and throw into, because for this week I was able to acquire Audric Estime from the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Because he was a top waiver ad.
Yeah.
And I also have where's this guy? Alexander Madison, but right now I have him as running back number 2.
Yeah, I understand why you're thinking that. Estime is one of those every week there's some name, some random guy that comes from a Key and Peele sketch where you're like, I have no idea who this guy is. He's shown up on the depth chart. Apparently he's the next guy up, and he's facing a team like the Falcons in this case, in which they're a bad run defense. So do you take the risk on a nobody, on a guy who's just a giant question mark, or do you lean towards the people we spoke of a moment ago that you kind of know their production? We've seen Ricky Pearsall for a couple weeks. We know how he's going to be targeted. We've seen Demario Douglas with Drake May. We know how he's going to be used. So if you want to go with the question mark running back against a good matchup, I'm not going to hate you for it. I'm going to leave that in your capable hands. But personally, I'm not going to start Estime. He's not someone that I went to the waiver wire to pick up, because I don't know anything about this guy in the NFL that would lead me to believe that he's worth starting compared to some of the other names you mentioned. And something you know, and for all the viewers out there, I don't usually chase a high ceiling, because a high ceiling is just, it's betting on a lot of risk, and I don't want to do that. I want to flip that. I want to lessen my risk. So I usually take people who have a high floor. Estime, I have no idea what he's going to do. Giant risk. I'd rather go with a wide receiver who I know, like DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to, he'll get 4 or 5 targets, or 4 or 5 catches rather, on 7 or 8 targets. He'll be targeted in the red zone. There'll probably be a deep shot that if it's not pass interference or incomplete, if it's somehow completed, it's probably a 30-plus yard gain. You just think about how he'll be used, kind of literally what the equation would ultimately be composed of, and you think, okay, that's a more believable scenario than Estime out of nowhere. So that's why I go with the receivers that I recommend, Juan. Sorry for the diatribe.
No, I appreciate it, just because I've just been hearing everywhere over TikTok, several YouTube videos that this guy is a top guy. And
I totally believe that there are people out there. This is what's great about fantasy football, is it is like the stock market, in which there are going to be people with different strategies who are trying to get you to buy or sell based on their position or their advice on a position. And what I would say is, they may be right. The kid may be a stud, but I don't like to take that kind of risk. I'm not that kind of investor in the stock market. I'm not that kind of sports bettor. I'm not that kind of fantasy player. I like to have a high floor. You know what actually wins games in fantasy football? Not having a bust. That's what wins more often than not. If you guys really follow me and you guys play the advice I give, you're probably not undefeated, but you're also probably in the top three teams in your league. Probably. Because sure. I give you high floors. Because if each person is getting a high floor and there are no holes, that's hard to overcome each week. Unless you're going up against a Jamar Chase from last week, hard to overcome that many points. So I'm not crazy about Estime. If you want to take the gamble on it, totally cool. I won't judge it, won't think less of you. It's just not a strategy that I personally would go with.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and speak for myself after, following you for a pretty good amount. I would say, like, I trust you 100%, and I've went and asked you a bunch of questions here on the show. And so I'm going to trust your advice just like I always been doing. So I'm going to go ahead and roll with the lineup that you just given me right now. But my final question would be, I'm not sure if I should go ahead and pick up Trey Benson, because currently I have Connor, and
Yes.
I know that Connor
Yes.
tends to
Yes.
go ahead and
Just
get
to
injured.
cut to the chase, because I want to get to some other questions. The answer
Yeah.
one is yes. Great instinct at this point in the season. Great to get the handcuff backup running back, especially in a situation like Arizona, where older player likelihood of wear and tear breakdown is pretty high. I think it's a really smart move. Trey Benson has shown that he's a pretty capable backup. If he ever got enough carries or enough opportunities, he'd probably be an RB2, if not like kind of a high flex play most weeks. Again, if he took over James Conner's role entirely, I don't want to assume he's going to put up James Conner numbers. We'd have to see it to believe it. But I think that's a really good stash on the bench as an insurance policy if James Conner were to get hurt during your fantasy football playoff run.
Okay, awesome. Well, appreciate the advice, and I'll go ahead and keep you to the show, man. Thank you so much.
Juan, we'll talk again later this week, I'm sure. Let's go to Alvaro. We're doing a subscriber-only show, but if you're a subscriber, you get to call in. Those are the rules. Alvaro, what's good?
Nothing much, man. I just had a question for you.
But go ahead.
What should I do with CD? I'm just like, I'm thinking I should trade him for a good running back, but I don't know. I have Brooks, Bucky Irving, and that's for my bench. But I was thinking I could probably like trade Bijan or someone for like a good receiver.
Okay. I want to make sure this is clear. You know what's going to win you a championship? Running backs. Running backs will win you championships. Wide receivers, hard to win you a championship. It's possible. Jamar Chases happen, but running backs tend to win you championships because running backs get you touchdowns. And in fantasy football playoffs, touchdowns are massively important. So, with that said, I want to make sure you don't give up Bijan right now. That would be a mistake to me. I would move on from CeeDee Lamb. I think CeeDee Lamb's value has plummeted, and it's not because they didn't put up curtains at AT&T Stadium. That quarterback situation's a mess. That offense is a mess. Mike McCarthy's done. It's a bullshit regime there in Dallas. They're not going to play. They're not going to risk CeeDee Lamb's health for the next 6 weeks. Next 7 weeks of a season. They're not going to do it. I'm telling you, I'm concerned about it as a fantasy owner. So you're right, trade him. If you want to go in running back direction, expect it to be an RB2. Don't expect it to be a high-end player. As I mentioned earlier, if I had CeeDee Lamb, which I don't have him in any of my leagues, I would look to trade him for a high-end tight end. Because I actually think there are a few tight ends that actually will be more valuable than he is, but they're going to be easier to acquire. Because the guy who has that tight end is going to go, oh, I'm only giving up a tight end for CeeDee Lamb. In their mind, I think it's going to sound like a good deal. In terms of actual data value production, it's going to be a good deal for you. So that was a thought that I did have and wanted to put out there.
Yeah, I think I'm good on tight ends. I have Mark Andrews and Brock Bowers, so I don't.
If you already have two, then yeah, it doesn't apply to you. It applies to other viewers. In your case, go after that running back. Go after an RB2. Honestly, a Josh Jacobs is someone to consider. I know that seems like it's too low. Maybe you get a second player in there. That's really what I would do. Doing a 2-for-1 with maybe two kind of RB2s, I think that would actually be really good value for you, kind of plump up your bench.
Do you think someone would take CD for JSN?
Yeah, I think they probably would. Would because when DK comes back, JSN's back to being a wide receiver too.
Okay. Because I have Pacheco in a couple weeks if he does come back.
Why not try and get Kareem Hunt? And that way you corner the Kansas City running back market because trading CeeDee Lamb for Kareem Hunt, the guy who has Kareem Hunt's probably like, hey, I'm going to lose the value on him anyways pretty soon when Isaiah Pacheco comes back. If I can flip him for CeeDee Lamb, that's going to be a massive upgrade. Kind of an interesting way to kind of own the running game of the Kansas City offense.
I think I like that, yeah.
Just play it out. See, play out offers. And what I would say is go in there without high expectations, like you're gonna get a Kyron Williams or something like that. If you keep your expectations realistic, I think you'll find a good trade for CeeDee Lamb actually.
Yeah. One more question.
Sure.
Should I drop DJ Moore for Pearsall?
Man, sounds freaking crazy, but I don't hate it right now. I don't hate it right now because of two things. One, Ricky Pearsall showing what everyone was talking about in the preseason, which is kids got it. Kids actually got the moves. Like, the dude can play. So I think his value is increasing, and I think his usage and targets is going to go up. So I kind of like him. And two, on the other side, it is a mess in Chicago. And if you told me that DJ Moore was one of the players who was saying bench Caleb Williams for the backup, I would totally believe that. So I would try to throw DJ Moore into a trade. I would try to just I never like to drop players with brand value because there's always someone who's willing to trade me a diamond in the rough for a brand name player, if you know what I'm saying. I would always lean towards that, but after I exhaust that, if you drop them, I'm actually okay with it.
Okay, got you. That was all. I really appreciate your advice. I've been listening to you for a while now. I just want to thank you for everything. Like, you really helped me through the fantasy season. You
guys are being incredibly nice tonight with all these incredible comments. Thank you, Alvaro. I hope you continue to watch the show, and I know we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, man.
Let's get to another caller. We're keeping the callers going because if you're a subscriber and you want to call, I'm willing to do that. Francisco, what's good?
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
How can I help you?
So I'm second place right now, and I just made a trade. I gave up Montgomery and White for Breece Hall and Zay Flowers. I have Kyron Williams, Tracy Jr., and Pacheco at my running backs.
Loaded running backs. Yeah, nice.
So now that I have four, Williams, Hall, and Tracy and Pacheco, at my wide receiver, I have Cup and Samuel Jr.'s, and I kind of want to upgrade there. Who should I trade away? Who do you think I should trade away?
If I were to trade any of them, it would be Pacheco because he's got question marks around him. You don't know quite what you're getting yet. But that said, I love having the four running backs. And then through the rest of the season, you can always not drop one of them, but bench one of them who has the worst matchup. But running backs in a flex spot for playoffs, very nice to have. For wide receiver, how big's the league? How many owners?
12.
I think there should be someone on the waiver wire. Check the waiver wire and see if because you're only looking for a wide receiver too. That's all you're looking for. If you want to make a trade, package some stuff on your bench to try. You're only looking for, if you have 4 stud running backs, you're only looking for two competent wide receivers each week. And if you have one of those locked in, then you're just looking for one each week. I actually wouldn't make a move and give away my running backs. Those are so valuable. That's giving away an oil well. Wouldn't do that.
Yeah, because we're also PPRR, points per reception, and...
By the way, that's how it should be. Forgive me, I shouldn't curse. I hate PPR. I think it's so stupid. I think it's like if in fantasy baseball you got points for stepping in the batter's box. Like, no, do something with your opportunity, then you should be rewarded. I agree with. I kind of like the way you guys have it because it's like, why does making a catch have value, but carrying the football doesn't? Like, all right, so that only underlines my point even more. So your running backs are so valuable, and it has a double purpose. One, you have 4 stud running backs, awesome. 2, you aren't keeping other people from owning those running backs, and I don't really want to go up against Pacheco if he's the RB1 of the Chiefs in a month, and all of a sudden they're rolling with him. I wouldn't want to face him in the playoffs, so I would hold on to the 4.
Yeah, and we only have 4 bench spots too, so the waiver wire is pretty loaded. Not loaded, but it has a good...
That's what I'm saying. Francisco, go fishing in a stream that's got plenty of salmon. That's what I would do. I'm going to let you go so we can get to some more questions. Thanks for watching the show, Francisco. Let's get to our next caller, another subscriber. Let's get to Oxnard. Oxnard's next on the line. Oxnard Eagle, what's good?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for answering my call.
Of course.
So this is what I'm in first place right now.
Let's go.
Yeah, I do have the least points out of everybody.
I'm sure there are other owners in your league that are bitching about that, because I've been in situations like that, and everyone bitches about that, and I'm like, well, then beat me. Well, then beat me.
For real. Yeah, and at this point, I tell them, hey, I look at matchups, and then with your advice, you've helped me many times, so thank you for that. So here we go. So this week's lineup, I'm going with Lamar Jackson, Tyreek Hill, Jaden Reed, Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones, Kyle Pitts, Shakur, and Jennings.
Pitts is a questionable one for me just a little bit. It's not that I don't think he could have a decent game. It's just that Broncos they're a good pass defense. That's one that stands out to me that I'm just a little bit like, do you have another option at tight end?
Juwan Smith.
Jonnu Smith.
Jonnu Smith, my bad.
And you've got Tyreek Hill going, and I don't want to double up on the offense. I got that right? You have Tyreek Hill?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to. Okay, keep Kyle Pitts. I'd rather do Pitts and diversify on the roster. Okay, where were you going with that? What else?
Okay, so I was thinking in my flex, should I keep Shakur and Jennings? And on my bench, I have a very tight bench. It's Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy, Travis Etienne, and Smith.
Calvin Ridley needs to be in your lineup this week. I know it doesn't feel good because you're banking on Will Levis, and I know you've heard me rant about how I feel about Will Levis. But that said, Calvin Ridley's got a great matchup this week. It's tough which one I'd go with over Shakir or Jennings. I'd probably lean towards starting Jennings and Ridley and sitting Shakir.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, just because Ridley is averaging about 7+ targets, and there's a few games he's had.
And when he's got Will Levis, he might be an idiot, but he's got a massive arm. And one of the best assets that Calvin Ridley has is he can just beat people over the top. He can just beat people. And that's something when you had Mason Rudolph throwing him the football or Trevor Lawrence last year, you didn't have that spectacular arm talent that Will Levis does have. You saw it last week. It's one of the reasons I actually like the matchup against the Vikings is the Vikings can just get beat. They can just get beat deep. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ridley does that. I would have him in the lineup. I'd probably go Jennings, though. The real question to me is Jennings or Shakir. I think if Amari Cooper doesn't play, does that sway me towards Shakir? I think I lock in Jennings right now because the Seahawks as a pass defense have had their struggles of late, but it's close depending on injuries.
Yeah, look out for the injuries and who. Okay, so then basically on who's starting that lineup that game. Okay, and also though I do have the Minnesota defense though and the Green Bay defense. Then should I start the Green Bay defense over Minnesota so I don't lose those if I do start Ridley?
That's a tricky one for me. For a couple reasons. One, I think that the Bears are a more talented offense. I know they've been playing like shit. We all know that. But they do have more talent on their offense than the Titans do.
Right.
It's close. It's close.
If you were setting your lineup and this is what you had in your heart, what would you do? Basically, because this is wrong.
I'd probably start the Packers. The issue I'm having is I'm like the biggest Will Levis hater. Like the guy throws stupid interceptions like every week. He makes stupid plays. But that said, the Vikings give up a lot of passing yards, and I have to respect the fact that, like I said a moment ago, Will Levis has a big arm. He's probably going to get a lot of passing yards because, again, Vikings will probably have a lead. They're very good at stopping the run, so if Tony Pollard is shut down, Will Levis is chucking, lends itself to interceptions and sacks, but also could lead to a lot of just, big passing plays. I think I lean towards the Packers right now. Bears are a mess. They just changed offensive coordinators. I think I lean towards the Packers just barely, but honestly, it's closer to a coin flip than I want it to be.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. Also, I'll have to look in more into that. That's the reason why I'm still in first right now, because I go based off matchups, and I kind of really look at, okay, what corner is facing my receivers when I have the number 2, or even when I do have a slot receiver. So I look at those matchups, and I really look at, okay, how many averaging passing yards they give up, and they're against the pass defense and all that. So that's the number one reason why I am in first is because I'm looking at matchups, and then I get hated for people saying, well, you don't have that much points. You have the least points, and you're still in first. How are you doing it? And I kept saying, like, because I look at matchups. You guys are looking at the big dudes and thinking, like, these stars are going to give you all these points. But if you really detail the matchups, then that is going to help you get to where you want to be. Maybe not first, but I guarantee you'll probably be, like, third, if anything.
You Oxnard, I don't know how much of the show this evening you've been watching, but you might have missed my diatribe earlier, which was I'd rather have a steady lineup. I'd rather have a lineup of guys who hit singles than 3 guys that hit home runs. A lineup of guys who hit singles, where's the out? Where am I getting my 3 outs? If there are only 3 guys that hit home runs in the whole lineup, all right, I can pitch around that. Same goes for fantasy football. If every guy in my lineup is hitting their floor, is delivering a single's worth of production, man, overall, that's a pretty high score. Hard to beat that. It's probably closer to 100 fantasy points than 120, 150, or depending on how your league scores. But if I'm putting up 100, 110 points every week,
right,
all right, I'm competitive. And then I put the pressure on everybody else to make smart decisions. And to your point, I think a lot of times people chase things with brand names and not playing the matchup. So it's a great point, Oxnard. I'm going to let you go so we can answer a few more questions, but I appreciate you joining us. Hope we talk again later this week.
Most definitely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hope you guys are enjoying the show. It is a subscriber-only show, so you do have to be a subscriber in order to join. But, of course, we want to get as many questions in as we can from subscribers. If you don't want to subscribe, join us at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. Our show for everybody is at 4:30. Warren Hackler, start 2, Jaden Reed, Wilson, DK, or Jennings. I'm assuming that's Garrett Wilson. I would absolutely start Garrett Wilson this week. I really like the matchup that he has. I'd lean DK just barely if he's back healthy. If he's not, I'd actually lean towards, I think, Jaden Reed. Even though Jennings has a nice matchup, I like how they use Reed in a multitude of ways. So kind of a crazy answer there. Wilson is definitely the start. DK would be number 2. If DK can't play, it would be Jaden Reed. CL, Herbert, Kyron, JT, Montgomery, Pollard, Warren, Nico, London, Cup, Higgins, Reed, Kraft, and Otten. Rest of season, I think this is a very strong lineup. You're a little overloaded on the Green Bay Packers passing game. Does that concern me? Not that much, because you're going to mix and match with your wide receivers anyway, so it doesn't bother me that much, especially the fact with Otten playing as well as he is. Now that you get past his bye week, I think you're in a pretty good spot, CL. I really like that team overall. Appreciate you guys watching the show. Diego, is it time to cut Xavier Worthy or still stash him because I have Amon-Ra, London, Garrett, and Waddle? I think those are your starting 4. Here's what I would say. How big's your league? If I went to the waiver wire, is there anybody of Worthy's caliber? If there isn't, I would stash him, wouldn't move on. If there's somebody else out there, I would say Ricky Pearsall would qualify. I would own Ricky Pearsall stock more than I'd want to own Xavier Worthy for 2 reasons. DeAndre Hopkins totally took his additional targets and opportunities, especially deep down the field. And 2, Xavier Worthy's just not playing that good. He's just not as good as we wanted him to be. Dude is fast. Dude's very fast. But he kind of reminds me of the wide receiver from The Replacements. He is faster than everybody around him. But he doesn't catch the ball as well as I want him to, and he doesn't keep his feet in bounds the way I want him to. He kind of loses himself out there in space. So I'm not as high on Xavier Worthy as I was, maybe a month ago, and Hopkins is a big part of that. And 2, they've thrown him the ball, and those plays have ended up as incompletions. I feel like they're seeing the same thing I am. There's only so many times they're going to go to that well. Juan S., who to start at running back, Madison or Pollard? Man, I think Madison's probably got the better matchup. Pollard's going to get a ton of carries, but I'd say Madison. I don't like Pollard's matchup at all. CL, dumb question, but should I consider trading JT for Connor because Connor's playoff schedule? The answer is no. I'd still own JT. I'd rather have JT. That's the kind of move where you might be overthinking it. You might go, oh, Genson. I think I'd rather own the better running back, at least for now, and that's Jonathan Taylor. Appreciate the questions. Let's go to Jacob. Jacob's another subscriber-only show, so let's get at it. Jacob, what's good?
Hey, man, I have starting lineup would be Bo Nix, HN, Henry, Collins, Lamb, Jennings, Pollard, and then I have on my bench Shroud, Dell, and Dobbs. Would you
give me the bench one more time?
Shroud, Dell, and Dobbs.
I'd get Dell in there.
Would you be okay with playing Dell and Collins?
This week I would, for a couple reasons. One, I think that because they're playing the Cowboys and how things went last week, I think the offense is going to open up a little bit with Collins back. And two, if you gave me your wide receivers again, I thought I heard a hole in there, or your running backs. You have Tony Pollard in there at the flex. I think that's where I'd slot in Dell. I don't love the matchup that Pollard has against the Minnesota Vikings run defense. That's one that has me really concerned. That's a very good run defense. And if I'm the Minnesota Vikings, I'm like, let's force Will Levis to beat us. If we stop Tony Pollard and force Will Levis to beat us, we probably win. Makes me think Tony Pollard might get, 12 carries, but he might not get 50 yards.
I also have Mooney as a wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't love that one either. He's a tough matchup against the Broncos pass defense. Those are two players where they have been awesome. Mooney and Pollard have been awesome, like great out-of-nowhere plays. They've got a lot of value rest of season. I don't think Week 11 is going to be their week. Don't think so based on the matchups.
So I should bench Pollard and play Dell?
That's what I would do. The only reason I would play Pollard is if you're like, he's going to get a touchdown. I feel like he's getting a touchdown. Then he's probably worth it. But frankly, I like Dell more. I think Dell's the better play overall, Jacob, than Pollard.
Okay, thank you, man.
Jacob, you have a great night, and hopefully we talk again later this week.
Yep.
If you guys want to join the show, hit me up, but you got to be a subscriber. CL, any chance I drop Higgins for Tillman? Do I like it? No. It's a good play this week, but I think you look back in a week or two and go, why the hell did I do that? Cody Meyerson, CMC was reported questionable because of his Achilles. That's from Shanahan. Should I be worried? The answer is no. If I own Christian McCaffrey, at this point, I'm not worried. I was worried when he was away. I was worried when he was in Germany. I was worried when he was in rehab. If he's playing, he's playing. Do I have to have insurance policies in place? Absolutely, but I'm going to feel good about it. Nino Pena, yo, BF, do I trade Chase Brown and Ingram for James Conner and Otten? The answer is yes, actually. The answer is yes. I like James Conner's playoff matchup a lot for fantasy football, but really it's because Cade Otton's become a stud, and Ingram's value has gone way down. What Evan Ingram was last year, frankly, Cade Otton's become this year, which is someone who's on an offense with good wide receivers around him, a good quarterback, but he's just getting a ton of targets because he's the go-to guy on must-have situations. So I would do the trade, Nino Pena. Aiden Thompson, start two between London, Metcalf, Cooper, or BTJ. This is a tricky one for me because I don't like London's matchup against the Broncos. I'd go Metcalf and BTJ, just barely. I don't like London's matchup against Patrick Surtain II. Alvaro Garcia, CeeDee Lamb for Pickens. Love it. Love it. I'd rather own Pickens rest of season. Love that trade. Think that's a good idea. Zane, flex Dell, Swift, or JMO. It's got to be JMO this week. Jacksonville Jaguars pass defense. All that needs to be said. I'd go JMO. Warren Hackler, got to drop one. Tracy, Bucky, Chase Brown, when Pacheco comes off IR. It's probably Bucky Irving, believe it or not. Tracy Jr., I don't want to give him up right now. He's playing incredibly well, and he's the RB1. The reason I'd be willing to give up Bucky Irving is, even though he's RB1, at least in the running game, they swap him out. He's not used in the passing game as much. Chase Brown's a keep. Chase Brown we're keeping. So it's really between Irving and Tracy Jr., and I lean Tracy Jr. right now, just barely. I think offensive line may play a factor. Let's see what Tristan Wirf's injury is. You have a little bit of time because Pacheco's not done. He shouldn't be off the IR in fantasy just yet. I don't think, at least. Diego. Oh, thanks, Oxnard. Appreciate you, bud. Diego, pick 2. Monty, Achan, Chase Brown. Picking 2. Montgomery and Achan. Diego, Montgomery and Achan would be the 2 for me this week. Oxnard being incredibly nice. Oxnard, I appreciate the kind words. Because of that, how do I do this? Let's, I'm going to make you a mod, man. So there you go. Oxnard Eagle, you're a moderator now. I think you should be. Thanks, Warren Hackler. I appreciate you. Hope you're enjoying the show. Hope everyone's enjoying the show. Juan S., are the Saints a good defense to start for this week? I don't think so, because they give up a lot of passing yards. I think Jameis could have a field day against them. Shanda the Wine Panda, I'm desperate for an RB2 this week on waiver wire. Warren, Ford, Estime, Madison, or Edwards? Interesting question. I think it's between Estime and Madison. Ford is really interesting. I would say Ford if Nick Chubb were still gone, still out. It's not Jalen Warren. I don't like the matchup against the Ravens, so I wouldn't go with him. It's between Ford, Estime, and Madison. I think I lean barely towards Madison. No, it's not. It's not Madison. It's Ford or Estime. Shanda the Wine Panda, it's between Ford and Estime, and it's a coin flips. At this point, it's probably Estime. I have so little knowledge of what he can deliver because he came out of nowhere. So I think it's Estime, but you can hear how I kind of backed myself into that one. CL, I'd go Russell Wilson. CL, Russell Wilson over Justin Herbert. Just barely close, but I would go Russell Wilson given how the Ravens' pass defense has performed. Joe Modelos, I'd go Jordan Addison. Joe Modelos, I think I'd lean Jordan Addison just barely. Cody Meyerson, Kate Otten for Pearsall. You already have Bowers. I don't like that. I actually think Otten could probably be a better flex play most weeks than Pearsall would be. I would not do that deal. Sal, Reed, Moore, or Debo. I'd go Debo. Sal, I would go Debo on that one. Appreciate the question. Fuzzy Caterpillar, hope you're having a great night. Appreciate the questions everyone has. If you guys want to join... Oh, Shanda the Wine Panda, appreciate you. Hope you're having a great night, Shanda the Wine Panda. You know what? I'm in a moderator mood. Guess who's a new moderator? Shanda the Wine Panda. New moderator. At least you should be. Hopefully that works now. Diego, pick 2 wide receivers. St. Brown, London, Wilson, BTJ, Waddle, Worthy. Diego, you gotta start St. Brown, and I'd go Wilson as the other 2. St. Brown and Wilson would be the 2. Okay, Cody, you're getting Otten? Love it, dude. Love it. Would do it. I don't like doubling up on Baker and Otten, to be honest with you. I wouldn't do that, though. Alvaro, CD for Pickens. Love it. I would rather have Pickens. I would love that trade. Shanda the Wine Panda, happy to have you as a moderator. Oxnard, happy to have you as a moderator. Make sure you're spreading the word about Butt Fumble Sports. I'm counting on you. Diego, Goff for love. Goff, Diego. This is the week for Goff. CL, better stash rest of season. Warren or Trey Henson? I'm assuming you mean Trey Benson of the Cardinals. I'm going to say it's Jalen Warren because he's going to get better usage. I think the better... If you're saying a true stash, maybe it's Benson because it's an emergency play. But I think who could actually get more usage? It's Jalen Warren. I'd rather own him. Diego Bowers or Kincaid? For this week, I'd go Kincaid. Close, but I'd go Kincaid by a very small margin. Very small margin, but I would go Kincaid. MK, Flex Hunt, Jacobs, or Hopkins this week. It's between Hunt and Jacobs. Close. I'm going to lean just slightly, I think, towards Jacobs, though. Bears run defense. Once good, now sucks. I'd go Jacobs just barely over Hunt, but I feel like that's a close one. Hand it to you, Laporta or Bowers. Laporta. You just make sure he's healthy enough to go, but if he's good to go, it's absolutely Laporta. Juan S., which defense should I pick up off waivers? Rams, Jets, Colts, or Browns? I probably lean towards the Rams. I don't trust the Jets defense enough. It should be the Jets. Let me put it this way. On sheer talent and who they're facing, it should be the Jets. I don't trust them. Don't trust them. I would say Rams. I'd go Rams out of that group. MK, I'd go Laporta over Kraft. MK, Laporta over Kraft. Guys, we've been live for about an hour. Subscriber-only show going an hour. Usually we keep it a little bit shorter than that. CL, by the way. CL, I'd go Cooper Kupp. CL, I'd go Cooper Kupp. I will be live tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, okay? So make sure you follow. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're sharing the channel and telling your friends and setting aside time to watch the show. And make sure you're with us at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. Oxnard, I'm making you a moderator was already a great move. I appreciate you guys watching the show. I appreciate all the subscribers, all the followers, everyone who takes time out of their day to watch me talk sports. It's awesome. I'm grateful for you. I hope you guys know it. It's the highlight of my day. I will catch you guys at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. Make sure you join us. We're going to be giving out Thursday night football picks because, yeah, we got football tomorrow night. We're going to be giving out picks, and we're going to answer a lot of fantasy football questions, of course. So make sure you join us then. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, have a great night, and I will catch you guys.